Hi, it's Diane, and I'm very excited for my new book, Daily Meditations for Visionary Leaders. Check it out on my website, visionsapplied.com/meditation. Now, on with the show.
If you are listening to this podcast, it means you are searching for someone who understands you, someone who gets you. You are yearning to be understood and to belong. Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where we help smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. Let's welcome your host, ambassador, author, speaker, and mentor, Diane Allen. Diane has the experience and knowledge to educate and inspire, as she has been there and understands your unique intensities and their challenges.
And today on Someone Gets Me, we're going to talk about voice lessons. Yes, voice lessons. Not singing voice lessons, though I do work with a lot of musicians. And not speaking voice lessons, though I speak out in public and I know people who do. I'm talking about the different ways we can have a more courageous and clear voice. A voice for all of us in our personal lives. So what do you have to do to have a courageous and clear voice? That's what I'm going to talk about today. And I have a few pointers for you. In fact, I have five different things with ideas that go with what to do to have a better voice. Because courage means that you do what you need to do, even when you're feeling a lot of fear. It does not mean you don't have an emotion. Courageous people are the people who do the right things, even when they're scared. Or even when there's fear or doubt or worry, they still step up. And that's who you are, the visionary people who no one gets. That's probably why they don't get you. It's because you're able to do things in the face of fear where other people would back down. So here are some ways for you to develop and enhance your already courageous and clear voice, because your courageous and clear voice requires these things. The first thing is to clarify the limits that you have on what you can do or give. Having very clear limits of boundaries and knowing what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, and what you can do and what you can't do is very important. People who have open hearts, who are empaths or givers, tend to say yes, 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 and often have a struggle to actually committing to it and doing and following through. Years ago in my 20s, I had this problem. I said yes to everybody. And then I disappointed a lot of people because there was no way I could do what I was saying yes to in the timely manner and in the way that was expected. And I disappointed me, and I heard a lot of people doing that. So one day I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, when somebody asks me if I will do something or help with that, when I automatically want to say yes, I'm not going to say yes right away. I'm going to say, well, let me think about it, or let me pray about it, and let me get back to you. I gave myself a few moments, whether I would hang up the phone and then think and call back, or whether I would, if I was in person, just keep the conversation going and think about it. Sometimes I knew the answer was yes right away. Sometimes I wasn't sure I wanted to say yes, but I almost did. So I gave myself a permission to just say, let me get back to you, no matter what I thought I was going to do. And then I would go apart for a minute. I would meditate, or I would think, or I would pray about it. And I would say, okay, is this request reasonable? Is it something I can really do? Is it something I want to do? Is it something I have time to do? And I would ponder those things and be as realistic and honest with myself as I could. And then I would go back and I would say yes or no. And my agreement I made with myself was, if I said yes, I had to do it. No backing down, no whining, no complaining, no forgetting. And I can tell you, there were several times I said yes to too many things too quickly, and I was really tired, and I never did it again. I learned my lesson because I wanted to be in integrity and I wanted to do the right thing. Also, I wanted to not overdo it. So now I'm a lot better at my timing. And I still sometimes mess it up by saying yes to too many things and then wondering how I'm going to get it done. but I get it done. It's important to have clear limits and boundaries on what you're going to do and what you can and can't do and what you're willing to do and not do. Visionary people and leaders and gifted people tend to say yes and then figure out how to do it later, which is a great asset. And if you're going to have a courageous and clear voice, you want to have an inner clarity on what it's going to take and what you're actually really able to do or not do. You have to be clear first with yourself and then with others. Another piece of this clarity is to have an important part of yourself being assertive and standing up for yourself and paying attention to what's right for you. It is okay for you to say no. It's okay for you to say, I would love to help you, but at a different time. It is okay for you to be all of who you're meant to be. Just because you can do lots of things and you're really amazing at everything you do and you can learn anything does not mean you're meant to. It's one thing to know your vision and follow it. It's another thing to be distracted by a bunch of really good ideas and maybe not so good ideas from other people around you. So it's okay to set the limit and it's okay to have clarity on it. That's an important part of having a sense of self. The phrase that I would use for this piece is a sense of self is knowing what you have to offer and not offering it too quickly. You do not have to say yes all the time. It's more important to have clear boundaries and clear limits. When you find yourself anxious or maybe complaining or going, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, it's because you said yes too much. And so it's time to say, okay, how can I pare this down? How can I make things more reasonable? And I'm a big yes person, and I rarely say no. So what I've done with myself, because saying no is hard for me, is I've said, okay, I'll say yes, but I will let the universe do the timing of it. So I might say yes to something, and it may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. It might not even be this week. And if I'm open and receptive, and that thing is meant for me to do, when I have the time and it's the right time, that thing will be available to me, whatever it is. That's just the way it works, at least in my life. So maybe you can try that. So point number 2 for your voice lessons is to calm yourself down. Stay calm, right? So if you have a lot of anxiety or you're reactive or you have an emotional overexcitability or an intellectual excitability where you are really good at jumping and being hyper and moving fast, and maybe you think faster than everyone around you, so you finish their sentences and you think you know where they're going with what their idea is, and you don't even know if that's true or not sometimes. So it's important to be calm and centered. Very successful business people meditate frequently for this reason. They are very reactive and high energy. Some people would call it anxiety. I might call it an overexcitability. Maybe it's both. If you're one of those people, being calm is important. Now, calm is not the same as being bored, and it's also not being lazy. Calm means that my inner self, my interior world, has a flow and an ease and a poise to it, so that how I express myself in the outside world is on purpose and focused and aligned. And it's not just jumbly all over the place. So if you think about the people who are very successful, they have a calm interior world so they can be laser-like on point with what they're doing with their outer world. Richard Branson's a good example of this. He's always having fun. You always see him laughing. He works really hard, and he spends a lot of time nurturing his interior world so that his exterior world is more aligned and authentic and real and successful and joyful. He is a good example of that. So it's one of the most important things to do. That's why I'm getting ready to start another podcast called Meditations for Visionary Leaders. That's why I wrote a book, Daily Meditations for Visionary Leaders. Being calm and being focused and having these things is so important to be able to do. You want to be that calm presence. in an anxious, emotional world. You want to be that steady lighthouse. That's how your courage and your clear voice shows up. When people around you maybe are confused or upset or anxious or struggling somehow, and your interior world is quiet and calm, you're able to speak with authority and clarity and a reassurance that often is needed in those situations. And you wouldn't be in that situation if you weren't meant to be that voice. So your courageous and clear voice requires you to be calm on the inside. You want to be calm and lower your intensity and your reactivity. So people with overexcitabilities are running at a completely different volume than everyone else. That's why the podcast Someone Gets Me, right? And it is okay to tell your overexcitability, okay, we're going to throttle it back a little bit here, and we're not going to let ourselves be reactive because of it. We're going to use our overexcitability and our intensity for more improved and concentrated focus and effort, so that as we are moving forward and we are in whatever the situation is, we are a positive influence. We're a beneficial influence. We're not part of the problem. You can use your overexcitability to drive up the anxiety, decrease courage, and make things very unclear. Or you can use your voice and your overexcitability to bring a sense of courage. That's the ability to act in the face of fear, and clarity to what is happening. And I think a lot of times that's what we're meant to do, is to be that voice that has that courageous and clear and calm and assured manner about it. So your calm intensity, we're going to call it, your calm intensity is contagious. When you can be calm yet focused and intense in any situation, everyone around you will be able also to feel that situation happening. And then you will be that beneficial presence. You will be that positive influence. Your courage and your clarity allow you to speak the words and behave in a way that supports other people in an amazing way, even when they're not conscious of it. You're aware of it, but they're not conscious of it, and it's okay. They don't have to be. Another point about being calm that I really like is that it really helps that fear response to back down. So the whole idea of fight, flight, or freeze, the limbic system, in the brain that gets us all ramped up, that's meant to keep us afraid, to keep us protected, gets to relax and gets to have a break. Just because there's a little bit of fear or confusion does not mean that we have to go into all out run or fight mode. That's where being courageous pays off. Having a sense of who you are and what your vision is and what your purpose is, and being calm because you're breathing and you're focused, allows courage to be what you express, allows clarity in your voice and what you say to be expressed. You can think about it as like your mind being an ocean where way deep down it's calm. It's kind of doing its thing. But on the surface, there could be lots of waves. I race sailboats, and I can tell you there can be big waves out there, and I'm sure you've seen them way underneath us. The sharks and the fish and the turtles and all the sea life, they are having a good time. It's maybe a little turbulent, but not like we see on the surface. And so to have somebody that is courageous and clear, and they use their voice in a way that has that deeper calm, is very healthy and very healing and very hopeful for yourself and others. And so you developing that skill and ability really pays off. So when you can't calm down, or you're having a hard time calming down, like your overexcitability is going, or maybe you really are anxious and afraid and it's hard to get calm, this would be a really good time to be quiet. In other words, watching your voice so you're not saying things that will incite more fear or make the situation more challenging. I watched a movie the other day, and I don't watch a lot of movies. In the movie, there was this bully terror person. It was an old Western, and he was like, scaring everybody in the whole town. And this young guy was like verbally confronting him and charging him down. And of course he got shot. And he didn't know how to keep his mouth shut in the face of adversity, and he created more problems for himself and others because many other people got harmed as a result as well. So sometimes we need to learn that it's okay to keep our mouth quiet. We don't have to act and speak at every moment because our knee is jerking. We can step out of the situation, allow ourselves to have focus and clarity, and then speak when it's appropriate in a way that's respectful and courageous and also very clear. So that's the second one. The first one is to clarify your limits and boundaries. The second one is to stay calm as best as you can. And the third one is to speak to the positive. The word no and not, those are learned behaviors. They're not natural to our brain. So when I say, I'm not going to eat chocolate cake, I'm not going to eat chocolate cake, I'm not going to eat chocolate cake, I will eat a whole chocolate cake by the end of the day because my brain hears, I'll eat chocolate cake, I'm eating chocolate cake, I'm eating chocolate cake. I may not want to eat chocolate cake. So it really is important for us to remember that we want to speak to the positive because our brain has to translate a negated word. That's a rapport building skill you could use in other areas too. When you speak to the positive, it works. Like you tell a 3-year-old, don't run around the house. What are they going to do? Run. If you tell them sit, they will sit. If you tell them what not to do, you will see more of it. It's the same thing with us adults. So the more we speak to the positive and toward what we desire and what we're longing for, the more happy we are and the more results we have and the more our voice is one of clarity, calmness, courage, affirmation, and the more you're heard because you're using language that is friendly to the brain. We want to notice things in specifics. So when you're complimenting somebody or you're speaking to someone and you go, oh, that's really nice, that is not nearly as powerful in your voice as when you say something like, it was very kind of you to send me that really beautiful card. It really means a lot. Thank you. Or even mentioning something further like what they said in the card. Now we're talking. Now your voice is clear and beautiful and wonderful and courageous. And the listener now feels empowered and positive. But when we say something innocuous like, oh, that was really sweet, it really has no substance to it. And that is a part of voice lessons where we want to become more specific. As I tell the people I work with, we stay healthy in specifics and we are dysfunctional in generalities. So trying to speak as positively and as specific as you can really warms things up. It really helps people receive you, care about you. It helps you have better rapport. And you become known for somebody who, when you speak, there's some substance to it, where you're speaking to what's good and right. And when you're speaking to the things that are working versus being the constant critic, devil's advocate, what's wrong with this? Because when you're full of criticism, wise people try to, kind of steer away sometimes. And the more wise you get, the more you realize that being critical and criticizing is not part of wisdom. It's part of fear, and it's part of lacking an ability to really state what's clear in a way that is healthy. So when you have a high emotion, it wears down the foundations of your strong relationships. If you're always, like a firecracker and you're always all over the place, that high emotion, that high drama wears everybody down, including you. And it wears down the relationship where over time the people are like, I can't do it. And there are times in my life where I've been in high emotion over things. And even I got tired of myself. I had to spend time meditating and getting out of that cycle. So we warm things up by being positive, right? By looking for what is good and right. That does not mean that the challenges and situations go away or that we turn a blind eye. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, as I look for what's good in a situation and I speak to what's positive, I become a voice that is clear and courageous. That's what I'm saying. So when we surround our climate with love and respect and kindness and generosity, then things change around us. We do not have to go be a jerk. We do not have to be screaming and yelling and being critical and freaking out. That is not what a wise person does. And someone gets me is when maybe you are the voice of reason and the people are hysterical and they don't understand you. That could be it. Or you could be one of those people who follows that intensity into rocket ship land and other people can't keep up. So by warming things up and being connected to the people around us, because we are a voice of positivity, of goodness, of optimism, while being authentic and honest, because in every situation, there is something that we can speak to be grateful for. Even people who are having a hard time are usually the ones who are strong in character, right? So there's something. We want to have positive comments come out of our mouth 5 times more frequently than something that is considered negative. 5 times. That means for every whine or complain or fearful, doubtful, worry, grief, guilt comment, you would want to say 5 uplifting, positive, healthy, inspiring comments. 5 inspiring, healthy, wonderful, uplifting comments to every 1 low vibration, gooky kind of comment. 5 to 1. That's the ratio. That's how you have a courageous and clear voice. That's how you can use your voice to be a beneficial presence and to let your authentic, real self show up. Number 4, told you there were 5. We're on 4. Number 4 is to listen to other people with the ear of understanding. You want to listen to understand them, not so you can speak back. So real dialogue happens when you speak. I count a few seconds maybe, and then I speak back after you're done. When people finish other people's sentences, or you can tell that they've dialed in and they're just waiting for you to take a breath so they can say their part, those are sequential monologues. Those are not dialogues. That does not yield a good voice. A good voice, a courageous voice, a clear voice is also in the same being as somebody who listens in order to understand. When we're scared and we're hypervigilant, I guess would be a good word, we can often be challenging to ourselves and others. So we want to start calming down, like I've already said, staying focused on what's good and right, and listening to understand. That means being defensive, being well defended, needs to be let go for a minute so that we can really hear what's being said. If we're going to try to correct another person or tell them how they feel or fix something, and that's in our agenda, what we're going to do is we're going to use our voice to weaken the relationship. And we want to have things around us feel strong. So it's important to listen to somebody to understand them. I think that's why so many of the clients, the first time I'm with them, will say, "Oh my God, you understand me." That's why this is the podcast name, right? Because I listen to understand. I may not agree. It doesn't matter if I agree. It matters that I listen with an intention to understand what I'm hearing. I enter every conversation with the ability to listen, to understand only, nothing more. If there's more that comes, that's beautiful and wonderful. And that is not my intention. My intention is to listen, to try to understand the best way I can. If I don't understand something, I ask a question or I say back, "This is what I heard. Am I right?" So I can be sure I'm understanding. I'm very slow to offer correction or information or input unless I'm asked, because my real role is to listen to understand. Then everything builds from there. Because when we're defensive, or I have my wall up, or I'm defended somehow, like I'm not really listening, or I don't like the topic you're talking about or something, then I'm not listening to understand you. And you've had it happen to you and you've probably done it. I know that when I'm talking to somebody, if I can tell that they're going to jump on whatever I say and they're not really hearing me, there's not a whole lot of connection. I will end up moving on because it's not authentic. So some people have what I call LDD. Yes, they have LDD. And that is a listening deficit disorder. A listening deficit disorder is somebody who does not listen to understand. There are people who are running their own agendas and they keep talking, and they only talk to hear themselves talk or to make sure their agenda is put forth. And that is not very healthy. And that's not somebody who has a courageous and clear voice. So if you have LDD, let's start getting more positive, more calm, focusing on what's right, and shifting the way you see the world. I'm hoping some of these ideas are either affirming for you what you're already doing, giving you some new ideas, but also if you don't have the information yet, that you use them. It matters so much. So you want to think in the form of like every conversation is like 2 in 1. One part of it is listening to understand, making sure I know what's going on and I get it at least to the best of my ability, whatever that is. And the other part of the conversation is to make sure that you have clarity without defending or without attacking. So some people say, well, is this what you're saying? And you could tell they're going to defend or attack. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about listening to understand, and your authentic, courageous, clear voice might ask a question to understand more deeply. I developed the practice some years ago that if somebody shares something that I disagree with or that I don't understand, that I ask them to tell me more. And what I say is, wow, it's very interesting that you said whatever they talked about, and I would like to learn more. Will you please tell me more? In a very humble and open manner. And I can tell you that what I've learned over time, the people who have actually told me more and responded to me and we had a conversation, what I realized is the emotion and the feelings they had and their thoughts underneath what they said were much more similar to something either I also feel or I have felt. That there's more similarity often than differences. I think the problem a lot of times is people hear what's on the surface and they extrapolate to what they think the interior world is. And it's not always a direct reflection. So I always ask people, help me understand that or tell me more about that. If it doesn't apply to me or I don't resonate with it, I still get great information or understanding from another perspective. I don't know, maybe my next client or maybe the next time I speak in a conference, that information, I will need it, right? I try to stay open and receptive to the best I can. I know I don't have to agree with everybody and they don't have to agree with me. That's fine. At the same time, I still can listen with an open ear. That's part of having a good voice. That's part of being courageous and clear, is also listening. It's 2 parts of the same coin. And you notice how I'm saying yes and instead of either or. That's one of my characteristics. It's always yes and. What else is there? How can I learn more? What is your vantage point? How are you seeing things? It's those things that really help me see. The other part I want to say here in the listening to understand part is the more conflict there is, the more avoidant people become. So if you find relationships that you have are having consistent conflict, you're probably telling yourself stories in your interior world about the exterior world that don't line up and maybe aren't even true. They might be coming from old belief systems or old hurts that you have to work on. So when there's conflict, I suggest you listen to understand. I suggest you learn to use number 2, calm down. I suggest you warm things up by looking for what's right and good and positive. That does not mean putting up with unacceptable behavior or allowing yourself to be abused or any of those things. I'm saying that relationships that have conflicts in them often, the conflict starts from people not listening and not being focused and not looking for what's right. So if you start there and it's still a lot of conflict, there's more to look at, right? And step number 5 to your voice lesson for a courageous and clear voice is to respect differences. I'm not saying tolerate, I'm saying respect. And I'm using that word on purpose. Respect differences. It's important, I think, to do that. It's profound and it helps us lighten up our world. When we sit in a place of hate or we glorify shame or we're intolerant of differences, what we're saying about ourselves is that we're fearful and we're having a very difficult time in our interior world. It is some of the most diverse and different people that I have met in my world that have made it rich and amazing and beautiful. And it's some of the people who I would have said were more similar to me that have caused extreme harm and things I took a long time to heal. So sometimes the difference and our ego's fear keeps us from beauty and a great relationship. So our responsibility as a courageous person with clear, good voice is to respect differences. It does not mean that we tolerate intolerable behavior in the name of difference, which really bothers me. I could go on a rant about that, but I will not. When people use that difference as a way to control or manipulate another person, that is sick, period. So we respect the difference, but we still hold everybody accountable to the same standards and the same way of being, because that's the way it is. And when we start using a difference to showboat or to harm another or to put another down or to harm ourselves, then we're way, way, way off track. And that's outside of the scope of this podcast. That would be, please get some help, because there's a problem there. There is a law of natural consequences. That law is a spiritual law that overrides all these, human dramas. We need to understand that. So the more we respect people and the more we understand that we're all different. I mean, just think if the world was all the same, if we were all exactly the same, like robots, there would be no excitement and no fun and no diversity. And it is important that as you respect others' differences, that you're around people who respect yours. It's an everybody inclusive situation. And accountability and the law of natural consequences are true for everybody, not just part of the equation. It's universal. And so this is a really big one. And I think it's very important. I know that the diversity in my world has made it so much better. Like my tapestry of my life has been woven with amazing, amazing, vibrant color and texture by the people who are not like me. And like I said, some of the people who are very much like me or appeared to be that way really had shifty motives and difficulty inside to the point where they ended up causing pain, not only to me, but to others. So it's not about whether they're the same as you or not. It's about how open and healthy and willing we are to look for what's good and right, how we are able to listen to understand and to support people as they grow and evolve and change. We're in a world right now that's changing and moving very fast. There's a lot of transforming and emerging of great vision coming, and I see it all around me. I have clients that call me all the time, and we work on things and meditate on things, and we learn to calm down and look for what's good and right, because sometimes transforming and really coming into our own can hurt and can be hard and difficult. So Someone Gets Me is about holding the space for yourself and others, like I hold the space for you to get you. I get what it's like. I get what it's like to look for what's good in a situation that's painful. I get what it's like to listen to understand when I have very strong views on something and my ego wants to talk. I get what it's like to back up and allow the person to finish. Always, I'm glad I did. I get what it's like to respect a difference, even when my ego at first wants to think something different. I get what it's like to calm down, even when I'm feeling very energized and very inspired or very afraid or very anything intense. I get what it's like to throttle back. That's what I say to myself. I get what it's like to have clear limits and know what's going on. That's what I get. I hope these 5 areas for your voice lessons have inspired you to up your game, maybe share with somebody else, do something with them to affirm your progress and your beauty and your greatness, because you are here on purpose with a purpose. You do have what it takes. So the 5 spots here on this voice lessons for your courageous and clear voice include having clarity of your limits and boundaries, what you can do, what you can't do, what you will do, what you won't do. Number 2 is to calm yourself down and stay calm. That doesn't mean slothful and lethargic. It means calm and focused on purpose. Number 3 is to keep things warm by speaking to what's good and right and positive. Quit being a jerk and being so self-centered and criticizing. Pay attention to the goodness in others. Number 4 is to listen to other people to understand them, not to speak back, but to understand. And number 5 is to respect differences. Be a little bit lighter because it's all going to be okay. Everyone is trying to make it, and everyone is searching on some level, whether they know it or not. So if this podcast was helpful to you, share it with somebody, listen to it again. I hope that my thoughts today have inspired you and continue to inspire you to be that courageous, clear, amazing voice, even in the face of fear and change. So until next time, remember to keep your face toward the sun, because the shadows fall behind you and you can see your own beauty.
Are you tired of searching for someone who understands you? Join our Facebook group, Someone Gets Me. In this group, you will be able to connect with others who are intense, sensitive, smart, talented, and wanting to be understood. Diane shares her insights and teachings, and you can connect with others. Join today.